Hi, I'm Shlomi Ron, CEO of the Visual Storytelling Institute, based here in sunny Miami, Florida. We are all about bringing the gospel of visual storytelling from the world of art into marketing. We do it through training, consulting, and thought leadership, like this podcast we're all in right now. So, one of the things that caught my attention in the past month is obviously we all been going through very hard times through lockdown, and I came across this interesting company that actually did such an amazing feat during this tough period for everybody, specifically in the cinema and the video streaming space. So that's why the topic for today is going to be all about what is virtual cinema, something that I came across. And to help me kind of unpack this exciting topic, I have two guests. Michael Brown, he is the CEO and founder of Cyber New York. And with him is Vincent Keane. He's the creative director at Cyber New York. And welcome to both of you to this show, and I'm excited to have you both.
Thanks for having us. It's good to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, so you kind of blew my mind, with your story of last, spring and the work that you've done in the virtual cinema, helping out movie theaters. But before we're gonna dig deeper into that, maybe we can get a little bit to know you, and also Vinny, what is your backstory? How you got into digital video streaming and all that?
Sure. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm the founder of Cyber New York, and we're a digital agency that I started in the late 90s, actually. So primarily we focused on e-commerce, but from the beginning, we always had a strong presence within the arts, whether that was visual arts, performance art, initially arts publications, and film. So that goes back to the late 90s. So that is the niche that we had carved out. So along the way, we perfected e-commerce solutions that catered to that community, and specifically to independent film and film distributors. So we split our time working with independent filmmakers and distributors, and more recently, actual venues. So it's kind of fortuitous. We saw changes in coming with our clientele. Believe it or not, physical product sales such as DVDs and Blu-rays are still a large part of revenue generation for our clients.
Yep.
And but we were concerned. We didn't want to be the company that was making buggy whips as cars were coming out. So I think about 5 years ago we started talking about we need to really develop a cloud-based platform, which we did. It's called Logic, and that's our proprietary content management system.
Got it.
And that enabled us to better facilitate the offerings that we're giving to the entertainment clients. And we started partnering with other video platforms such as Zeit and Vimeo, to name a few, to make their offerings native within our platform. So a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, we saw that, okay, well, we need to move out of just being purely the content management system or the platform. We need to get into digital video and streaming, because eventually physical product, you would expect that it would die out. It's very big with collectors. But we wanted to be ahead of that. So this was a new world for us. We were more of shopping cart and physical product. So we sat down, Ben and I sat down, I would say now like a year and a half ago in 2019. And we were at a bar around the corner. We're in Brooklyn. We were at a bar with a couple of friends. And I proposed the idea. I said, we got to get into this. I think we should put on a film festival. And that's the only way. We have to set a deadline.
Yeah.
That deadline will make us commit to it. And if we will promote it. And if we fail, we'll be humiliated. So
Yeah.
Right.
we kind of have to commit to it. And after a few drinks, it was really catching
It
on
was
as a
real.
good idea.
No, that's amazing.
And then the name of the company, Cyber New York. So you could probably tell I'm a bit of a science fiction or
Yeah.
a fan. So I'm not a film festival. I had never worked with a film festival before, so I thought science fiction was something I was passionate about. So that's
Yeah.
the course that we would take.
Oh, this is
And
amazing.
yeah, so we started. We really had no idea, right, Vin?
Absolutely none.
None.
Yeah,
Now
maybe
you
Vin,
actually,
do you want to kind of tell your backstory a
Vin,
little
I
bit
should
just to
say,
kind of
had
connect
worked.
it?
Vin
Yeah.
had worked with film festivals.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
had worked with some film festivals prior to this, but never in this capacity and never from the ground up. It was always
Mm.
a business acquaintance or a business relationship with them. And
Oh,
I always
excellent.
loved them. I was always interested and excited about them.
Yeah.
But this was different. This was something that, we were creating from literally from a cocktail napkin. So it was exciting.
yeah,
Actually, from what I've been reading, in the news, it seems like the virtual cinema trend has just picked up last year, pretty much, I think with your contribution.
After us.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So you are really the pioneers that actually broke through that. But maybe if you can talk a little bit about how you really kind of helped out, all these closed movie theaters by working with distributors.
Mm.
Sure. So, as I said, we decided to do this festival in 2019. By 2020, we were set to go to South by Southwest to promote the film festival. That was in March, and we had the legwork going. So we're already creating this video platform now. Now we're like 6 months into it,
Yeah.
and so we're working with a few independent film distributors, collaborating, such as Kino is a big one with us.
Yep.
They're a longtime client, very supportive of our work. So we had a foot in the door. We were already working with Kino Lorber's physical product, and now we were partnering with another video platform to get their digital offering out there, which is called Kino Now.
Mhm.
So if all of these things had not happened in that sequence,
Right.
we would not be involved with virtual cinema. So
Interesting.
Right.
it just goes to show Kino was very forward thinking. They knew that they wanted to get into digital streaming, and so they're a great partner to work with. So I think fast forward several more months, must have been February. So we're not at a bar now, we're at a coffee shop, and we're talking about our strategy to promote
It was serious at that
Southwest. Yeah, we're I'm freaking out because I don't, we've got the rooms booked, and we've got a trade show booth, we got our flights going down to Texas. We're going to promote this film festival that still doesn't quite exist. And Vin you were trying to kind of I don't think it's going to happen, because this is right when COVID was starting to come out of it.
Yeah, and it just became one of those things we're having half a conversation about a pandemic possibly coming, and the other half about this really awesome AI interactivity marketing stuff we were doing for the film festival.
Got it.
So it was totally surreal. We had great stuff happening, and we still have great stuff happening, but it was just this weird pandemic haze that was starting to just swallow everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's very recent for all of us, but it in some ways it seems like it's 100 years ago, because it was the longest year. But we're at the coffee shop, and we had our press and media guy, Mac Montanan. He was there, and I just remember you guys are both staring at me like I was in denial. But I said, let's just keep moving as if this is going to happen.
Right.
And so we're planning, and we're talking about the platform. As we got up to leave, I don't know, Vin, if it was you or Max, looked at their phone and said, they called it South by Southwest is off. So the reason I mentioned this is that was kind of like the tipping point.
Yeah.
And maybe not everybody remembers.
Yeah.
But we weren't even sure if we should be sitting at a table with each other at a coffee shop. People were starting to wear masks, but nobody, you kind of why is that person wearing a mask? It's like out of a sci-fi film.
Yeah, it was still the early days. Yeah.
And so South by Southwest was really that first indicator that a major event was not going to happen.
Right.
And then there started to be talks of theater closures in New York. It was a very grim time.
Yep.
It happened very fast. So what happened was Kino, we had their digital streaming up and running for Kino Now.
Mm-hmm.
And Kino Now had this concept. We want to, we have all these films in the pipeline that would go to these art house theaters. They're all closing. We want to support the theaters.
Yeah.
So we're going to use the Kino Now platform to make it specific to the theater that you would normally go to see a first run film. And they'll do attribution for the revenue. So when you buy a ticket, mm-hmm. part of that, or 50%, I believe a 50% split would go to that art house theater. So Kino was like way out in front on this. It just shows you what a great organization they were, because
for sure.
They were really supporting the theaters that had supported them throughout all these years.
I see.
So we were learning about it. And at first, what Kino was doing was they were setting up static landing pages. And a lot of people in the industry were started to do this, like create a page, and it's for like the Enzian Theater in Winter Park, Florida. And it's this film, but that's not sustainable. You can't do that for 1,000 theaters across,
right.
You know, but people were really, you know, there's a lot of panic. So we pitched an idea to Kino. Let's build this system where we have a database of every single theater. Mm-hmm. We already have your database of every single film offering.
Yep.
Let's do the ticketing. Let's combine it all together. So when I land on the site, it's going to use GeoIP technology to see where you're at. It's going to show your theaters, and it's going to give you that. What theater do you want to choose? So now if I'm down in Winter Park, Florida, I'll see Enzian Theater, and I'll select that. When I purchase that ticket, we attribute it to that theater, and they get a cut of that sale. This happens so rapidly.
Wow.
So we pitched that idea. Kino was not, they loved it, but they was like, there's no way we can get this off the ground.
Right.
We're just going to keep doing these static pages. And meanwhile, they're wondering the performance of the site is dropping, because there's now they have hundreds of static pages. So we made a decision at that point. You know what? Let's just build it, and let's build it. We've gone this far in describing how it would work, and we actually had some wireframe prototypes. And so our lead developer, Craig Knoll, and I, we just started building it. And in 2 weeks, we had built it out. And in our regular weekly call with Kino, we said, "Hey, we got this." Yep. And they're like, how do we use this? What's the licensing? What, you know? And we said, "No, it's yours." It's like, let's do this. Let's get this up and running.
That was the Kino Marquee, right?
Kino Marquee, that's correct.
Got it.
And so we launched it. It was that fast. I think that they just had I think another week went by. So it was 3 weeks from first discussion to concept. And
what was the audience adoption look like back then? I mean, did people actually start buying tickets virtually? What was the initial response?
Like immediately.
Oh, really?
It was insane.
Like, yes, instantaneous.
Yes. I once again, I'll tell everybody, remember back to March and April. Yeah. Remember when Netflix actually kind of crashed?
Yeah.
Yep.
And when Vimeo went offline.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm still working in my bedroom, but I actually go into the office is starting to open up. But people were just sitting around. Schools were closing.
The wall, yeah.
And so content, you know, everybody was just trying to suck up as much content.
Right.
So so you already have, you know, we're not talking about your general Netflix audience. These are independent film lovers and art house film
new
lovers.
Films, by the way, right? So this is not just,
and these are brand new films that are coming out.
Yeah.
So there was already a passionate audience, and they're at home and they have nowhere to go. So they already knew about Kino.
Yeah.
And actually, DVD and Blu-ray sales skyrocketed because for across all of our clients, because there was a fear that, I don't know if people know this, there was a fear that the internet was going to go
It's gonna
down,
crash.
the
Yeah.
streaming services. So people started, you know, how people were hoarding toilet paper
Yeah,
and hand
exactly.
sanitizer. Well, the secret is they're also hoarding Blu-rays. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
On
so
guard
that
Blu-ray
there was a
discs.
resurgence.
Yeah.
So, so it launched, and I would say digital subscribership went up by about 1,000% within a month.
Wow.
1,000%.
This is insane.
This is on Kino Marquee.
Yeah.
And the theaters were just, you know, Kino was in a very special place where they had these relationships with the theaters, so they could roll this out. And then I think that month there was an article in Indie Film.
Indie Film, that's where I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, and just saying like putting the Kino is like basically saving or throwing a lifeline to these theaters. And then a lot of other distributors started following suit. I saw Magnolia was putting together an offering. We talked about working with them, but everybody kind of went a different route for the most part. But in this world, everybody knows everybody. Independent film distribution. So
so maybe you know just to kind of have an order a little bit in the minds of our audience in terms of the term, because it's so new and you're kind of at the cutting edge of this new movement. Maybe if you can define clearly how you do what do you see as a virtual cinema experience? And I know this is part of a larger video streaming space.
Yeah, that's correct. So where we started on our journey was with video streaming, so we could do a film festival and also provide streaming services to the clients. But when virtual cinema, that term was coined and it really blew up beginning of last year, it refers to new theatrical releases that would generally go to theaters before they can enter into any kind of a platform such as Hulu or Netflix or any other independent platform. So
it was more like a preview for limited, maybe.
It's like a screening. Yeah, it's a screening in the industry and distributing films. There's a pipeline where a theatrical release can only be shown in theaters, and it cannot be shown on any digital platform. You'll see in 2019, it was a big deal that a few people were, Amazon was experimenting with putting out a theatrical release at the same time as going online, because it's a contractual nightmare.
Yeah.
So virtual cinema for the consumer, the experience is it's similar to going to your local independent theater, buying a ticket. You know that money is going to go to that theater to support it, and the revenue is shared with the distributor, and it only is allowed to be distributed at that point through theaters. So what virtual cinema, it's not allowed to be distributed online. So what virtual cinema does is it walks a line legally that it's being attributed. It allows the film distributors who want to help the theaters and they want to get their films out. It allows those theaters to continue business without violating their own terms of agreement, the distributor, and letting other people distribute online. So it keeps that relationship where they get that first run in their community. So that's what virtual cinema is. So the experience for the user is they buy a ticket and then they can watch it. It has a release date. So a lot of times films come out on a Thursday or Friday. So you'll see what films are going to be showing, and then you can purchase the ticket in advance or while it's showing, and you'll have a rental period, and then it expires after that moves to out of virtual cinema.
Yeah, that make a lot of sense. And now that we have a little bit of understanding about what is virtual cinema, maybe Vinny, do you want to talk a little bit about, because I've seen that you guys have worked with several festivals already. What is the end-to-end process? Who are the key players that involved in creating a virtual cinema experience?
Well, I think what we've learned is that we start off with a very clear picture of what we want to offer the
Mhm.
audience. Like Mike was saying with
Yep.
virtual cinema, it allows that first run, that first engagement with a film that's new. And then we also want to have a curated experience that speaks to each brand. So
Mhm.
each one of the brands and the companies that we work with
Yep.
have their own approach and their own audience and their own relationship with that audience. So we try to simplify the messaging down, keep that look and feel consistent, and have that expectation met from an audience that's already built into that physical space. Like one aspect would be in
Yep.
Music Box in Chicago. They have a beautiful physical space
Mm.
that they wanted to make sure wasn't lost in the digital
I see.
representation.
I see. And so when we talk about brands, obviously this could be movie theaters, it could be any other brands that you work with, or typically it tends to be festivals or movie theaters.
For this, they're both. I mean, I think we have a good deal of a client roster that we've
Mm.
allowed our our process to be implemented to. One would
Got
be
it.
Lemley Theaters.
Mhm.
Another one would be some of the film festivals like the New York Japan Film Festival, the Crack Festival, and Irish Festival. Um, so we're able to take any of these brands and then
Got it.
translate them into the digital space using these little key components like from Logic.
Got it. So one thing I'm also curious, and we talked a little bit about it, the user experience. Is it, when I think about the film festival or a theatrical release of a brand new film, it's typically tend to be for a time limited experience. I wonder if your platform is also supporting kind of an evergreen, ongoing experience of community of the film buffs, or just open to the public that basically they can always, buy tickets and watch films. And is it also limited only just for your computer, or they can also watch it on their big smart TV? Maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Mike, I know you can't wait to say this. I'm so excited about this.
Yeah. Well, to answer those questions, there is that evergreen experience which we would call video on demand.
Yep.
So there's a library. You can have a library of films that are available at all times, and then you differentiate that with the virtual cinema releases or theatrical releases. So both can exist. And we're big proponents of pushing the web-based experience as best experience, but there's also OTT apps,
Right.
over the top apps.
Yep.
So you can watch on your set top, you can watch on your smart TV or through apps. So
So in this
we're,
case,
we're building in integration.
you partner with an OTT channel and basically pushing your content directly to them, so they can actually watch it in their living room, pretty much.
That's correct. And we're in our Logic platform where we develop these sites. We've built in an MRSS feed,
Mhm.
which is a industry feed of the video streams that can be shared. So we're making Amazon Prime and Hulu, not Hulu, Roku integration, so that it's really just a flip of a switch, and you go through their provisioning process, and you can have a channel
Got it.
on those
Yep.
formats. And we're looking to expand that. But that's going to be part of. We're going to launch out with our film festival this fall. Brooklyn Sci-Fi Film Festival will be on multiple channels.
That's awesome.
Right into your living room.
Yeah, maybe it's the right time if you would like to share a few examples and just to kind of bring it to life to our audience on video that's watching this now.
Sure. I've got a few examples. Then was just talking about Music Box Direct, a service. Now, Music Box is a theater in Chicago, but they're also an independent film distributor. So they're an interesting client where they have their own library of films, but they also do virtual cinema to replace their offerings that were in theater. So
this is like the consumer experience heading to that virtual cinema platform?
Mm-hmm. So
Yes.
you'll see these are virtual cinema where you have new this week, and then
Right.
they'll have new this week will be releases are probably coming out today. So let me go watch now, and you can
I
you can
see.
purchase the
Got it.
rental right here, or you can add it to your watch list. This one's a 3-day rental, and
And are there any community aspects where, people can actually share their experiences, or maybe have a, you know, virtual panel discussion with the filmmakers, almost like a festival feel? Or this is more kind of typical theatrical release where you just watch the film?
Yeah, not so much with the virtual cinema. We do have the ability to have a discussion forum or a watch
see.
party,
Yeah.
and it can fit into something like for music for any of these clients, because they may have like a premiere or an event, and we
Right.
have done that. We did something with Kino twice with the nursing during COVID, and
I see.
a documentary on urgent care workers, and
Got it.
that was a huge success.
Mhm.
So this is Music Box, and this is a good example of somebody who's doing virtual cinema, but also has a library of films that you can watch on a subscription basis, or you can rent if you're not a subscriber.
Yep. Yep.
And then you had mentioned Limley.
Yeah.
Limley
as
is
well.
another interesting one that is also a chain of theaters out in California.
Mhm.
Limley is a historic name in independent film. Carl Limley was the founder of Universal Pictures back in the 30s.
Oh, I see.
And then his nephews later in the 30s founded Limley Theaters. And so they've been a historic art house theater and big supporter of independent film. So early in the year, they approached us after we launched Kino Marquee, and we saw the second wave of theaters that were developing their own virtual cinema offerings to have their catalog. And they work in conjunction with Kino. They're distributing Kino Lorber films. So this example here is Limley Theater's virtual cinema offering. Greg Limley is one of the founders, so they have a Greg's List, and then these are now playing.
Right.
And
This
yes.
is cool. And do you have a festival example that maybe you can show a little bit of the experience?
Sure.
That
I'll show you New York Japan Cinefest.
uh-huh.
This is one that's closed now, but we're
Yep.
preparing for they're going to have a couple of festivals this year, but I've brought up the prior one. So this would be more of a festival example. Because it's disabled, we can't actually see the films right now. But
that's the one you mentioned earlier about the community aspects and the director interviews, panel discussions, all that.
That's right. We also have our festival, Brooklyn Sci-Fi Film Festival.
Yep.
This one has 100 short films and several features. And, because it's a festival site, we divide it up into categories. We also had an original curated series called The Sixth Borough, where we would highlight films each night with an event. We did several we celebrated an anniversary of a documentary on William Gibson, who coined the term cyber. So that was really great for us. And there was an interview here that we have archived that you can watch.
Yeah.
And then we also
one thing I'm wondering,
in
terms of the festivals, obviously, you think about it on a time limited basis because this is during the festival. But I'm wondering, looking ahead, once we are post-pandemic, do you see the festivals continuing having a virtual cinema component while they're having an offline experience, or you see just a twist to one side?
Then why don't you speak to that? I'll let you get in there. Since you've got direct hands-on experience with the festivals.
I do. I think that post-pandemic and into the future, this is the future. We're here. The future is now.
Yep.
they're going to be hand in glove. You're going to have an experience that will be in the spaces and in brick and mortar spaces,
Yeah.
but they will be shored up and maybe possibly enhanced online and OTT, because you're able to connect with your audience at where they are. You're bringing the product to them as
It's like
opposed to
global
having.
audience. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. And you know, you can make that a richer experience as you build that relationship
I
and
see.
reiterate that experience as you go forward with it.
Got it. No, that makes like a lot of sense. I would think that especially when you have a festival with a very unique experience, obviously sometimes it's connected to a landmark building, that the facility. But then again, if you can actually broadcast it live or have an online component, I think initially it started as a Facebook Live, maybe very, very simple, of panel discussions. But to your point, if you can expand it to kind of really replicating and mirroring some of the experience attendees are actually experiencing, both in terms of watching the films and the community aspects around it, I think this is an incredible accomplishment. So I want to kind of move a
Plus,
little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add that plus the level of engagement is higher. So if
Yep.
people are coming to the theater to see something, it's a one-dimensional relationship where they come in and they take,
Yep.
and you offer and they take. But here we're able to continue a dialogue and add on to that dialogue, whether it's through discussion forums or enhanced features that they wouldn't be able to do in the cinema, and can revisit at different times and dates. So that relationship gets a little deeper, I think.
Yeah, and I think maybe you just made me think, typically a festival is happening once a year. How can you retain engagement and also monetizing the relationship with the audience between this marquee date once a year? So if you can create a
Exactly.
virtual cinema and build a community and some engagement, to your point, then this is a great way to keep building your audience between official festival dates.
Maybe they will never be at an official festival date again. We'll have to see.
Exactly, exactly.
It'll be
Yeah.
forever.
So let's talk about, because of my audience is really marketers, entrepreneurs, how all this virtual cinema could be relevant to a marketer that maybe is, presenting a mid to large enterprise brand. It could be B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter. But how this type of platform, I mean, the immediate thing I'm thinking about is maybe use that platform for a virtual conference where you have an audience that you want to engage in a different ways. But this is just my idea. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that just as we saw now, once again, a year later, South by Southwest has gone virtual.
Yep.
And a lot of major conferences have gone virtual. It opens up a lot of opportunities. Um, because we build in these virtual cinema capabilities into our Logic platform, we're actually approaching some of our clients that are not in the entertainment or film industry. It's really interesting. And we're letting them know that they have these capabilities built into their CMS. So for example, we work with a couple of nonprofits, and one of our nonprofit organization, really great organization called World Connect. World Connect does microfunding and supports Peace Corps initiatives in I think 30 or more countries around the world. So they have projects. And they recently made a short film about one of their projects. So we were involved in certain promotional aspects of that. And I had mentioned to their executive director, you should do a film festival because this is, you had a filmmaker tell the story of this women's co-op in Costa Rica developing a small business, and it's very compelling, and there's an audience for that. So the concept was very foreign to them, but they want to keep that discussion open. So I don't think film festivals are necessarily just for science fiction or Tribeca or major releases.
What do you think that I think to your point, I think it just made me remember that, if you look at the major brands, and maybe this is something you're already guys working on, like Patagonia, Charles Schwab, Johnson and Johnson, they all have their own film departments already. And what
Yes.
they create is long form branded films that you don't see the product there, but it's all about supporting their larger narrative. Like Patagonia is all about the environment, climate change. So
Mhm.
over time, these brands have collected enough filmed content that maybe could justify, creating a virtual cinema experience.
Yeah, I think it's an innovative way to create a brand experience that's not overtly heavy-handed and engages the user. So
Yeah.
it's just another tool, especially with you know, consumers really crave content-driven messaging versus older traditional.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to knock print media or anything, but
Yeah.
if you can tell a story or provide a narrative,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I
much
also
more
think
successful.
it's assumed now, right? I mean, it's not just something that is a nice thing to have. It's an
Yep.
assumed arm and extension of a brand, or any festival or anything. You just the audience is assuming it's there already, and if you don't have it, that's where the disconnect happens. So I think companies need to really embrace that, and they
No,
will.
for sure. Let's talk about accountability a little bit. So, can you talk a little bit about the business model, Vinny? When you create a virtual cinema, what is the business model behind it? How the revenue is shared? Who are the key players?
I think Mike would be best to speak to
Mike,
this.
okay, go for it, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I can give a little bit of insight there, but we're really not involved in that end of it.
Right.
So we work with film distributors and we work with theaters, and in some cases, filmmakers. We adhere to whatever their contractual requirements are. So as I mentioned previously, there are different rights that people acquire to a film at different points in its lifetime, and eventually it becomes part of a catalog somewhere, typically. So a big thing is attribution and reporting. So independent film distribution, there isn't like any one particular platform, but what we do is we'll connect via API to whatever their reporting platform is. Some organizations have their own, they've developed their own platform. Like think of it as like a CRM system or some kind of a reporting platform. So we plug into that, and then everything else we have on our side, we have monetization settings where they would plug in the requirements of, okay, this film has the right to be purchased. It can be rented for this period at this amount. It can be part of our subscription service. So they have control over that.
I see.
And then we record every view and how it was consumed. And that goes into reporting and attribution, which it's not even really on the logic side. We do have the ability to show that reporting, but these distributors already have a system. So think about it for a small business, maybe relate to it if you have QuickBooks. So you're billing. So think about their attribution systems as like a QuickBooks where we're just connect to an API. Yeah. We put in all the sales data. And
they have their revenue share business rules on their end, their system to kind of cut it to with the movie theater and the distributors and others. That makes sense.
And I think basically, I believe in most cases it's on a monthly basis. They go and they reconcile and they pay out. And I say that because if something goes wrong, we hear about it. It's typically they say, "Hey, we're doing this month's report," and but that's about the extent of. So we're not involved in negotiating any deals.
I see.
On that side, but
I see. And from a success criteria, when you completed a project for a festival or for a distributor, like how do you measure success? What are you looking beyond just sales of tickets?
I think that there's a lot of different ways to gauge success. They're looking at acquiring an audience, so building up those registered members.
Oh yeah.
They're looking at ticket sales. They're looking at growth. And across those metrics, it's been widely successful for everybody involved in the programs that we're doing. And I would just extend that out. We're not the only people doing this now. I'm sure, I hope that all platforms are finding success in supporting these independent theaters and filmmakers.
Yeah.
And going back to something you mentioned before, I think as theaters open, we're already working with our clients. How do we convert virtual cinema to live in a world where theaters are open? So we're going to make that seamless.
Yeah.
So the play dates, what we call play dates, list for in theater and virtual or both. So it'll be a natural transition, and it will continue to support theaters.
Thank you. So, I mean, this has been fantastic journey to kind of get into a brave new world that you guys been part of the initial pioneers, which is fantastic. So I want to close with the general question, and Vinny, maybe you want to take this. What would you say would be your top 3 tips for any brand marketers that is looking to get into virtual cinema and really get the maximum value out of it?
I would say to start with a very clear idea of the tone and manner and conversation you want to lead with your audience, and make sure that you're starting simply so you can accomplish that. And once that's defined, to start building slowly so that your audience has a sense of an anchored relationship with the brand. So that as they build, you add more to that relationship, and then they start to engage at a higher level with that relationship.
Right. So don't start with the 2 bells and whistles right away. Kind of build it gradually.
No. Start with a clear understanding of what you can offer at a really, really high level.
I see.
And an expected level, so that you're basically under promising and over delivering.
Got it. Very cool. So I want to thank you both for a really a great conversation, and I really wish you a huge success moving ahead, because I think virtual cinema is really something that is my background, as we all we discussed earlier, is also kind of have an interest from the Classic Italian Cinema Festival that I've been involved in the past. So I know this world, and I'm really excited about this opportunity to reach new audiences, and at the same time, for me is the great aspect of your story, that you're actually giving back and helping out a whole movie theater industry that is really under distress right now because of the pandemic. And maybe to your point, Mike, moving forward, this could be another additional revenue channel to them once they're open with the virtual revenues. So if anyone would like to learn more about virtual cinema, how they can contact you both, maybe you can give us your contact information.
Sure. The best place to start at our website, which is cyber-ny.com. That's cyber-ny.com. And it's easy to reach me, Mike at cyber-ny.com.
Awesome. All right, cool.
And don't forget to tune in this fall for the Brooklyn Sci-Fi Film Festival, coming to you everywhere, both on your screens, whether they're in your house or in your hand.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And it's been a great pleasure. And for all of you watching or listening, I'll see you in our next episode of Visual Storytelling Today podcast. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Louie. Bye.